What's up, guys? Lord Nick here, bringing you another One Piece related video. This video, guys, is going to be me reviewing the ArtressTCG video. We're gonna be discussing his variant of Rebecca, what he kind of is, gotten into in Rebecca, and how awesome it is to have a big YouTuber that is on to the Rebecca hype train now, right? Like Artress is kind of a pretty well-known guy. If you haven't been watching him, I don't know how. He's kind of one of the biggest One Piece YouTubers currently. But he had, at the beginning of the OP07 meta, kind of made a comment that he thought that Rebecca was going to be really bad. He actually put her in the F tier in his initial rankings. And then he was kind of discussing it in his video about how wrong he actually was. And he actually felt like she had a lot of potential, that she has a lot of good matchups, and that, while aggro is kind of one of those things that can hurt her a bit, there's not a whole lot of folks that are playing truly aggro decks. And he still thinks that the law matchup is particularly bad. I've kind of come to the terms with that I think the law matchup is not nearly as bad as it was because of some of the tools that we have available to us. So I do kind of want to get into this video and kind of crack down on his list and get kind of my opinions on what he's kind of gotten into versus what I personally believe is the route to go with Rebecca. So let's get into it. Let's kind of look at it and let's see, the goods, the bads, the uglies, kind of get into that, the nitty gritty of the video. But before we do that, guys, make sure to go watch his video, give him some support, get some tips and tricks about some things that you might not have thought about from Rebecca. I think that he does a pretty good job showcasing how to play the variant that he built, and overall kind of gives you a good idea of the win conditions of Rebecca, and he has some pretty good commentary. So let's kind of jump into it. The first and foremost thing, the biggest thing that we kind of need to get to, is his list good? Well, I personally would not be playing a list similar to his, not in the fact that his cards are bad, but not because his list is bad. His list is a very solid list. I think there's not anything particularly wrong with the list. The thing is just in my personal meta, the way that I've been playing it and the way that I've been just kind of testing and constantly grinding it out, I just came to believe that the choices that he has made in certain parts of his list, I would not make those choices anymore. Specifically, he's working around the Orlumbus package, and I personally have felt that the Orlumbus package is probably one of the weakest parts of the Dressrosa package in the current meta state, and that is just mainly because, one, you need to have another character ready for Orlumbus to KO. 2, sticking on Orlumbus for more than one turn is actually particularly difficult in this current meta because a 4 cost is relatively easy for pretty much every deck to remove. Even decks that are not black have a pretty good way of removing it, right? We are a 5-life leader, so if we just take 1 on our second turn, we try to establish an Orlumbus and we can't because they can just play a Gadatsu and take it out. Meanwhile, if we develop something else, we're just not developing Orlumbus on the curve. We kind of need him to be able to remove things. So having 1-drop events, I think, is a better option. And then having Hajrudin for our third turn to come out because he's dang near impossible for anything outside of black to deal with efficiently. Now, note, he can't, cards can be dealt with pretty efficiently by like blue cards, but it's not necessarily like we're seeing a ton of blue. We will probably see a rise in Dofi as we get closer to OPO8. And, Boa is still relatively popular, but I don't think that blue is as big of a problem, and thus that's why I've moved towards the Hajrudin. But we'll get into that with the deck tech later. Let's actually just kind of evaluate his list. Is his list good? I think it's a great start. I think it leans into a lot of good things, but once we actually get into the nitty-gritty of the list itself, I'll kind of point out the, more in details of the things that I dislike about it and the things that I think you can do to improve it. Now, I think it's a great start, and I'm very happy to see that he's on board, and there's some great things that I will touch on that I'm very happy he likes. But let's kind of give a brief overview of his video. Like, what was my overall thoughts? What were the biggest highlights? What are the best things to take away from it? Outside of if you like how his list pilots, if you like how his list plays, the biggest thing that I think his video does a great job of showcasing is showcasing the NL matchup. I don't think this is a particularly terrible matchup. That being said, he did have to deal with multiple 7-drop NLs in his matchup, or at least one particularly sticky one. It's been a minute since I watched it. I watched it a couple days ago, and I just now had the time to start sitting down and actually, after my workout today, when I got to make this video. So I do remember that there was a particularly sticky one. And overall, I just really liked how it showcased the matchup. I thought it was a very good showcase video of it. I myself have kind of failed to showcase this matchup particularly well, and it's really been just like, hey, take my word for it, guys. I have an insane win rate against an L. Whoops, sorry. But I believe that this is one of the biggest highlights of his video, outside of just like the ideas that his list might give you and the concepts that he kind of goes over. And just in general, his commentary being very good about explaining his list and breaking down what he likes about it and showcasing some love and support we really needed for Rebecca to be shown. I think that this is one of the biggest highlights his video shows, because the other two matchups are not going to be particularly seen all that much. It is against a yellow-green Yamato, which can be pretty good to us. Really, that matchup goes bad if they either, one, have the Sky Island package and go super wide super early, or two, if they see multiple Hodies. Hodie is kind of the thing that can crush us. He does showcase a pretty decent matchup into it, but I just personally don't think that that is a super relevant matchup to be looking at. Not like I've always showcased the relevant ones, but you know, in the same vein that mine are not always relevant, I don't think that that one's that relevant. And then the other one is Red Dragon, which I don't think is relevant at all currently. I do have a couple of guys at local that like to Slime Dragon, and I have probably about an 80% win rate against them, despite them technically having a potentially better matchup into me than most decks because of how aggro they can be. I can kind of just choke them out, make them run out of resources before I start swinging at their life. And they really just have to hope that they constantly hit tons and tons of rush cards to get into me. And if they can't, then I just kind of win. So one of the biggest highlights of his video is going to be that NL matchup that he showcases. I recommend, if you don't watch anything else of his video, at least watch that part of his video. He does have timestamps, so it'll be pretty easy to find as well. I'll link the video down below, as well as my list and his list will also be linked in this video. So let's go over his list. Let's go over the goods, the bads, the uglies of this list. So good parts of this list. He is running the 2 of Aramaki, 3 of Kuzan. I think that is the correct number for these cards. I've kind of debated going up and down on it. He's also running 3 Gravity Blades. Yet again, I believe this is the correct number of these cards. I really like what he's doing. Now note, the things that I don't particularly care for here. He is running it at 4 Sabos. And the reason that he's doing this is he's only running 1 Moncherie. I think you could really easily just remove 1 Sabo, put in another Moncherie. I think being at 2 Moncherie is actually relatively important to this list to a degree. Maybe being at 1 isn't that bad. I think actually my current list might only run 1, so I am giving him critique on something that I'm also not doing. But honestly, you don't need 4 Sabos. Your deck finds them consistently enough, and at 3 of, you have between 3 Rebecca Searchers and your leader ability, you should be finding it pretty regularly. On top of that, he has Orlumbus in the deck, which means he's going to be milling even more. So the chances of finding a Sabo are going to be pretty good. He does run 3 Truno Bastardos. Now note, I have been debating running this card. I don't dislike this card. I actually really like this card. But I valued having more cost reductions than just a flat-up, one-time KO anything type of card. Because we already kind of have that with our Kuzan once we get into the late game. So many times this can just be kind of a dead card sitting in hand because we need to be able to develop a board state, and KOing one character is not necessarily always going to get us out of that. Now, it is a trigger from life that can be very, very relevant. But honestly, I think that the Gravity Blades are sufficient removal there. He does run the 1 con gun. I think that is an okay option. And we'll kind of talk about where I think it can kind of go from here. I've already kind of harped on why I dislike the Orlumbus package, which does mean that I generally would say drop the Gyats. At most have 2 Gyats. I don't think you really need the full 4. He's running the 4 just because he wants something for Orlumbus to be able to KO with, and it's an additional 2k. He is running the full 12 2k. I don't think you particularly need it. 10 I think is sufficient if you're going to run it. He is running 2 puddings. Now, note, I don't personally like 2 puddings, and the reason for that is they are way too easy for them to just go to your trash, and you have no way to recur them or get them back or do anything with them. And if they both end up in your trash, it's just a dead card. So the only way you can get it is off a draw and off a Sabo, which is probably why he's running 4 Sabo, is just to try to consistently be able to get to his puddings, Aramakis, and Kuzans. I oftentimes do find an Aramaki, so I can't really knock that you won't find a pudding, but I personally believe if you're going to run pudding, you run it as a 4 of, unless you're running Gecko Moria, and then you can run it as a 1 of or a 2 of tech. but I am not running pudding in my current list. I don't think you personally need it. The other thing that he does is he's only running 2 stages, which I think is both good and bad. I've kind of been debating myself changing it up to just 2 stages right now, because even at 3, I'm not seeing it all the time. And actually, this entire week, I haven't seen it almost at all. I saw it in one of my games out of all my games this week. In terms of early game, I've seen it pretty much in the late, pretty much guaranteed. But at a 2 of, you'll see it that way anyways. So, you know, honestly, I think being at a 2 of is one of the smallest critiques I can make of the list. But let's kind of compare it to my list currently. So my list currently, I am running Tumontree. I couldn't remember quite off the top of my head. My list currently is built more around the fact that Rebecca is going to be one of our main keystone cards. I also just wanted us to have as much removal options as possible throughout the game without sacrificing having cards that allow us to protect ourselves with counter. So we have 2 Brooks, we have 2 Kobe's. Instead of the Trunos, we are running 4 Patchworks instead of the Trunos and the Kongun. We were running 4 Patchworks. Now, I have debated dropping it down to 3 Patchworks and 1 Kongun just to have the Kongun, because into something like Nami, Kongun can win us the game. But with Nami coming back into popularity again, I'm really leaning towards this. But for now, even with it, my 2 losses this week, mind you, one of those losses was to Nami, and the other loss was to Gecko, and the Gecko one was 100% a loss on me. This deck should be on both of those. If I had swung proper numbers into the Nami, I would have won. So if I had swung 12 into Nami, followed by 12 into Nami, followed by 12 and 12, because I had double Luffy, I would have won the game. I didn't do that. I lost the game. So because of this, the options that I have before me is going to be as such. I think Kongun is a possible option. And then with the Gecko, for the Gecko loss, I swung at life, and I should have been swinging at characters just to get cards out of his hand, and then I could lock down some characters, and I could have actually played very defensively and turtled up and won. But I went for the game thinking, he doesn't have enough counter, because I had lost track of what was in his hand now. And that was a mistake on my part. I should have just tried to fetch his hand out, force him to try to have to go for game the following turn, and just won that way. But this list, I think, is super consistent. Now, it does consistently hate me in the fact that I don't see my Brooks or my Kobe's very often. And you could arguably turn it into 4 Brooks, because I've had that question a couple times. Why isn't it 4 Brooks? Why is it 2 Kobe, 2 Brooks? And the biggest reason I put the Kobe's in is because he has a sufficient number on his KO cost. He KOs 3 costs, which I think is a very sufficient number. Whereas I could be running like Sakazuki, who gets an even better number, but it reduces the number of counter in the deck. And currently, I don't really want to mess with that. Though, if I were to remove a Coliseum, I might consider a 1 of Sakazuki, because it keeps us at the same negative counter, but it gives us an additional character that we can get back with our Rebecca that gets rid of big cards, is a big threat in and of itself. Ultimately, maybe not a bad option. And it can combo with some of our other cards to give us some pretty good clear in one turn. I've also debated a 6 cost Brooks in place of it. But with my list, the biggest thing is we are focusing up very heavily onto specifically the removal aspect. Our Luffy's are there as just an additional threat. And he gives us another keystone option of getting cards back into our deck. And I think it fits better than something like a Lucci, because he in himself, as a 7k threat that can swing twice, is a legitimate threat that our opponent has to deal with. Now, when we were looking at our Artress's list, he has all of those same things. The problem is that I see with this list is his KO power. His KO for early game is strictly in swinging into characters, and then he has 3 Kiros, 3 Trunos, which is only 6 removal cards. Mind you, mine is running 8 early removal. I think that the value of having early KO power in our cards is better. On top of that, having an additional Kiros. I think Kiros is way more important than the Sabo is in our current strategy. Sabo is a very strong card. Sabo is a very good card. Sabo has the potential to win us games. But he does that generally in the later game, and we really only need 1 Sabo for that, because if we get Moncherie or Rebecca, we can get that Sabo back repeatedly. And that adds so much insane value. You know, doing a turn where our turn is just Rebecca, grab back a Sabo, play the Sabo. That's enough power just Rebecca, get back the Sabo, activate leader, play the Sabo, filter hand, handful of 2Ks, we have 2 blockers, and we have a board of 3 characters potentially. Like, that's a very powerful turn that can really mess with our opponent, but we don't need 4 Sabos for that to happen. Like I said, our deck is super consistent in being able to do that. I don't have as much mill power that he has, yet I still find that relatively consistently. And what do I mean by mill power? Well, my only mill cards are my leader ability, my 4 Kuroses, and my Rebecca Searchers and Sabos, technically. I have no other mill power in this deck, but I consistently find the cards that I need because I've built it to have that type of consistency. You know, we will find a Searcher. We need to play 1, maybe 2 Searchers a game. We will find the Sabo. We only need to play 1, maybe 2 Sabos a game, sometimes 3 if we really get into a late game loop and we're just searching for the answers to win. Our Kobe's get dead cards out of our hands, which is something I really appreciate having, and I think he might appreciate if he plays more Rebecca. He might end up appreciating that a little bit more as well. But, like, when I look at his list, I don't hate his list, but it does remind me of more of a traditional Rebecca list, a list that I have played in the past. And some of the things that I'm very happy that he has is the fact that he acknowledges how strong Aramaki Kuzan is as a combo. Like, it is just a super potent combo. But Aramaki is just very good with any cost reducers. So, like, it is good with Orlumbus. He's great with Hajrudin because the curve is really good and Hajrudin's hard to get rid of. He's great with one-legged soldier. So, like, his list isn't bad. I personally think his list is pretty solid. Like I said, I just, in my testing, have found I've had way more success with this list. And a big part of that is the consistency of making sure I always have something to KO their board state with. So let's get into some gameplay. We're going to try to play 1, maybe 2 games here. I'm jumping onto the sim to play with our list. This is the list that I just uploaded there for you guys to see. Oh, cool. They finally released a new version of sim. Well, we're going to play one like this before we jump onto the sim, updated sim. So, all right. Hey, look, we also got a Yamato. We don't have any KO, but we have 2. Yeah, we keep this. We have Coliseum. We have 2 2K counters. He wanted to start first, so that means his next turn is just swing at life. Activate leader. Take the Mancherie because we have a Searcher. Deploy Coliseum pass. Because this next turn can just be a Searcher. It could be a Kuros. It could be a Rebecca. If we hit at Rebecca, I'll put the cards that he hits out of our life here. Yep, that's fine. No trigger. There's our Kuros. Okay, so we play a Kuros, no targets. Play a Rebecca. From here, I mean, we do like the Luffy. Yeah, that's fine. We'll take a Luffy. Just so we have it. We don't want to pass up on too many boss monsters here. It is kind of how we're going to be able to maintain his board state and deal with him. Is he just going to stack 10? Yeah. We'll block. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we're not giving you that, bud. Okay. 52K, we're on 6. We draw. We take Coliseum. Play. Drop Coliseum. Don't really need this right now. Like it, but we need the 2Ks more than anything. Attack 5 at lead. We need to tax a card or 2 out of his hand. This next turn, he's probably going to try to drop Cody on curve. And then we counter the leader attack, we take the Hody hit. That's just how that works. Or we block, you know, doesn't matter which way. Oh, he's running the 2K Yamato. Interesting. So he's running just the purely Wano package, which I think it's Wano package and Hody, and I don't personally care for the Wano package as much. I mean, that's pretty strong. I'll give him that. What, 8 at life? No block. 2K, 2K. Thank you. Alright, so we deploy. We can't bottom you, so we only swing 5 at life. So this next turn, he could Hody us and actually just obliterate us life-wise. But I don't really... well, maybe. Yeah, actually, he's setting up for it. And we don't really have... like, I could drop the Luffy, which leaves us with 1 blocker, which isn't bad, per se. But I'm trying to check him to make him have to have the Hody. If he doesn't have the Hody, then we have a sufficient blocker, a couple of blockers. Ooh, oh man, that is rough. We're gonna bottom deck these this next turn. All right, so, oof, yeah, we're in not an ideal spot hand wise. So we're probably gonna take this hit just to get some cards back because we need cards to be able to win this. We can bottom these. Also depends if he Hodies or not. If he Hodies here, we just lose, I think. I don't think we have a sufficient way of getting out of 4 attacks. This being a trigger character, it's really bad for us. All right, no Hody. No block. We resolve that one. Cool. So he's just trying to go face here. So I think we do. Oh, he's just going 5 there. No block. Resolve attack. Tap stage. It's real stupid. He forgot he didn't know what Kyros do. It's kind of funny because it's literally what happened in the Artress video, I believe. I believe it was a Yamato who swung into the Kyros. Which is unfortunate, man. Like, I mean, you don't play against Rebecca, you don't remember that Kyros can't be KO'd that easy. Oh, please swing this into Kyros. Please swing this into Kyros. What is this? This is a 10k now? Oof, that's a lot of damage. Kuzan is sufficient here, actually. We go 5 at life. Hopefully it's not another trigger body. If it's another trigger body, we might be bad. It might be bad. But the Kuzan here gets us out of this situation pretty easily. Oh no. Oh no. He's thinking about it. He's thinking about it. It could be a Punk Gibson. Does he run a Punk Gibson? What he's thinking. Nope, didn't take it. Yeah, we don't need the Luffy, so we'll just do this. And turn. So a Hody will be really good for him here. It doesn't necessarily win him here, right? Does it? Because his leader will swing, what, 8? Actually, it does. It does win him here. Because unless these are both double 2Ks, he actually wins off a Hody here. No Hody, though. We have a shot. All right, there's the Momo. So actually now Hody doesn't... Trying to do math here. Hody does not win him here. No, he had to play too many cards. So now, even if he hits a Hody here, he can do a big Hody swing, but his leader only does 5, which means we can get out of that. We take 1 from the Hody. We don't care. We can bottom deck Hody next turn. So we need to be able to leader ability next turn. We're just going to start trying to pick out cards. He got an Ezo. That's pretty good. Doesn't do anything to my board state currently. She's just going to stick all on Yamato swing life? What's he doing here? Because, yeah, 12 would be pretty good here because that gets rid of him. And we can't afford to lose him, so we'd have to eat it and just try to go for it next turn. He has a 2K. Nope, he's doing that. The Samurai, okay. So he's at 9 cards. I mean, now your leader just doesn't get to swing. So I can just block with Aramaki. We can bottom deck this. That's not a threat. You get to kill the Momo. Okay. Back to Momo. Tenant lead. So he need 3 2Ks out of his hand. He has 9 cards. He has the sufficient 2Ks. It's just, does he take it and hope for a trigger? Like, he's hunting for the Hody with the 1-0 package here. There's 2. There's no way that he doesn't have more 2Ks there. There's a third one. So what do we need to be able to clear board here? So we're thinking we're playing Luffy here, right? So we're doing a 5 at lead, yeah. Because then we can bottom here. We can Luffy to clear something. It's not a huge deal. Or we can Gravity Blade. So we're just doing 5 at lead. Pay 1. Grab a Hajruden. It's a pretty good card. We could play the Hajruden here, actually. But I think we just do... We're going to discard the Gravity Blade to bottom you. Play Luffy. 7 here. So you just don't have a character. Restand the Luffy with bottom, bottom, bottom. 1, 3, 4. There we go. So we did have 2 extra. We can actually just do this. Turn, return, add a 2K to hand, and turn. So now we have 5K counter in hand, which means his leader won't be able to get into us even if he rests the blocker, so Hody doesn't win him the game now. So we're actually set to win the game now. His 6 cards in hand is not enough to get out of this board state. There's the Hody to rest. Ooh, he could rest the Luffy here. Yeah, that's rough for us, actually. So the Luffy does rest. But he only has 1 life. Oh, he can use the Hody. I mean, if he does the Hody swing at life, then we just eat the life. Like, we don't care. Because we know he only has 6 cards. No way he has enough to block out of these characters. Ooh, that's a banish swing. Ugh. Okay, so that's going at life. We are losing a card, it seems. That stinks. Which means we have to counter out of the leader. Which does stink a little. It means we don't get a card, we lose a card here. But it also depends what he does with this Hody. So this Hody currently is at a 10K. Where's this Hody going? Yep, you get it. Oh, there's a 10-drop Guzon. That would have been nice. Alright. Yeah, 10 at lead. I think we got it. Because if he can counter out of the 10 at lead, that's 1, 2, 3 cards gone. At bare minimum to get out of it. Oh god, 4 cards now? Okay. We'll cancel that. 7 at lead. And then 19 at lead. Guarantee the win. All right, that was a really good game for us. It's just really funny that I actually hit the same matchup that he showcased in his video. So let's see if we got another one here. This is crazy. This is craziness. Okay, he quit. He doesn't want to play against us. That's crazy. That's so funny. We're gonna end the video there because that's just hilarious. That's just so funny that I'm reviewing his video and then the two games that we hit would have been the exact first two that he showcased. But despite not being able to showcase the NL, we are showcasing the Yamato there. I don't think it's a particularly terrible matchup for us because even with the Hodies, we can play around it. It just comes down to that, like, you in the late game, you just don't let the leader hit and you just take one damage from the big guys. As long as you can maintain 2 or more life, right? Like if you take the first hit from the Yamato, stop the other Yamato hits, start developing blockers and characters, then if they try to just swing in with leader, they're going to start losing by tempo. Which is how you beat the Yamato matchup. I don't think that that is a particularly bad matchup for us. I don't think it's a particularly relevant matchup, but hopefully in the next video I can actually showcase the NL matchup. We almost had a chance there, so they quit, but there's only 3 people in the lobbies there, so I'm not gonna just run into the same dude again. But I hope you guys like this video. If you do, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment down below. And until the next video, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye, guys.